So, everyone, thank you for tuning in. I have a very special guest today that has agreed to give me some time. So, we have Jo Jorgensen today, who is running for president on the Libertarian ticket for 2020. So, thank you, Jo, for taking some time for us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
So I had Spike on my show last week, and we had him for a whole hour, despite a rental car and flight fiasco. And I'm sorry for holding him up and freaking security out a little bit. But we covered a lot of policy questions with him. So I have for you some more, I guess, sort of current event and philosophical type questions. And I'm just going to pound them out because I know we don't have a ton of time. So today there was a really cool article that came out from Reason that was reporting that you are actually polling higher than the gap between Trump and Biden in 4 key states, which is really awesome. But it could also provide some evidence for folks that like to call you a spoiler candidate. So what do you say to the folks who claim that a third-party vote is a wasted vote or a vote for whichever candidate they're hating at that time?
Well, I say the only way that I'm a spoiler is if they don't do their jobs. You know, Trump promised to come in. He said, I'm an outsider. I'm a businessman. I know how to balance the budget. I know how to cut spending. I can cut the deficit, cut the debt. And oh, by the way, I'll bring the troops home too. And he's done none of that. So had he kept his promises, I think he would have won in a landslide, but he didn't. And so now the people are looking around going, well, is there anybody else around here? So if I am a spoiler, then I hope it gets them doing what they should be doing, you know, following through on their campaign promises. Well, except for, I only watched a few minutes of the debate tonight, but I heard lots of promises of, we're going to take your money from you and we're going to spend it for you. So I don't want those campaign promises, but, you know, the outside businessman, I know how to get things done. That would be a nice promise.
That would be a nice promise. And you did just mention the trillions and trillions of dollars that we owe China and whoever else at this point. So what would your administration do to try to cut back the national debt?
Well, yeah, the first thing when you're digging yourself into a hole is to stop digging. So we need to stop digging. And I would look at, now let me preface this, okay, with we absolutely have to have a strong military to protect our borders, to protect our shores. However, we shouldn't be protecting every other country out in the world. We're in 160 different countries. So I would bring the troops home, by the way, and turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral, where we protect our borders. And we could save about $700 billion there. We spend more on the military than the next 7 countries combined. So if we cut our military budget by 2/3, then we would still be tied for the highest spending country on this planet.
Wow, that is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And in this question, I don't know, I think it's kind of timely and interesting because you're wearing red, but I know that you saw this because I saw you respond to it on Twitter. So as you've seen, red sweater guy, Ken Bone, the guy that went viral in 2016 for being like the quintessential undecided voter, actually announced on Twitter today that he has voted for you and you have his vote. And the Biden camp responded with these really ridiculous accusations that the media had somehow radicalized him into making a toxic and reckless decision. So if you
wait, can I interrupt? You mean the media that is 92 or 96% Democrat whenever you take the poll? Yeah, that media. Okay.
That same media that put out that weird commercial with naked celebrities today saying vote Democrat. It's bizarre. The same people that said the Libertarian Party was a joke because that one guy did strip at the convention. that
And
year.
you know what? That is ridiculous. And so was David Duke. And so was a number who, by the way, David Duke was both a Democrat and Republican, big Ku Klux Klan guy. You know, we had that Ku Klux Klan guy in what, Virginia, somewhere around there. So yeah, let's talk about weird guys.
But so if you won, given that liberty is so radical, what would this radical America look like for the average American?
Well, they would get to keep their money and make their own decisions. And I think one reason that we are so at odds with each other, why we're so polarized, is because we have to all vote basically on one thing. We have to all agree on something, and then it's one size fits all, which really doesn't fit all. And so if you look at education, you know, let's say you want prayer in your school or masks or online or whatever, and your neighbor doesn't. Well, the way it works with Democrats and Republicans is you have to go to the ballot box. Well, first you got to each support your own candidate, send in money, campaign contributions, put out yard signs, get all your friends to vote. And then comes election day, and one of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. And then, you know, somebody's not happy. With the libertarian way of doing things, you get to keep your resources. So if you want your kid to go to a school with prayer, you can. If your neighbor doesn't, he can send his kid somewhere else. So you would actually be able to make your own decisions in education, healthcare, retirement. You know, right now we've got the federal government in just about everything. And, you know, people wonder why we're so polarized. I mean, imagine if the government said, okay, we're going to vote today. Are we all going to be vegetarians, or are we all going to eat steak? And, you know, people say, well, geez, that's ridiculous. Well, think about vaccinating your kid or your kid's education or your health care. I mean, that's very personal. Why should the federal government be making every one of those decisions?
I mean, that's a really good point. And I think that with COVID, it's bringing up some interesting opportunities for the libertarians. Governor Baker in Massachusetts just passed a mandatory flu vaccine for anyone attending any sort of school or nursery or anything under the age of 30, even if you're doing online school. And surprisingly, the people of Massachusetts stood up and are suing him, which is something I never thought I'd see in a million years.
I never thought I would see freedom lovers in Massachusetts. So that's great. At least they went too far. And let me quickly add, by the way, I vaccinated my two daughters, and my daughter vaccinated my grandchild. So I personally believe in vaccines, but to tell other people that they have to put something, you know, the government is requiring that you put something in your body. I mean, I can't even believe that that's being considered in a free country.
Absolutely. So here's a popular and more traditional debate question. What would you do? What would you do in your first 100 days as president?
Well, day one is bringing the troops home. And that's something I can do without Congress. You know, part of the problem is a lot of what I'd like to do, I got to get Congress to help me, but I can bring the troops home on my own. I would work very hard to get rid of the Department of Education. I would start dismantling. I would start, you know, explaining there's a new sheriff in town. And oh, by the way, all the stuff that you've been doing, not constitutional. You shouldn't be doing it. So we would just start dismantling everything. By the way, the first 90 days, we would hope to get everybody back from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge one. Huge one. So you just mentioned, you know, people, what they're doing right now, things are unconstitutional and Congress gets in the way of things and da-da-da-da. So what are your thoughts on in Pennsylvania and now in Michigan? There are two separate courts. There was the Michigan State Supreme Court, and then the federal court in Pennsylvania ruled that these lockdowns are unconstitutional. And the governors, both in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, kind of just gave the middle finger and said, well, we're going to continue to do this because we're going to appeal it anyways.
I mean, you know, here's the irony about these lockdowns, about putting us all under house arrest. And three of my grandparents are immigrants, but one of my grandfathers came here from Sweden. and his family came here for freedom. And look, over in Sweden, they were allowed to continue to go to restaurants and shopping and schools, and we're all under house arrest. I mean, we're supposed to be the land of the free. How can that be? You know, how ironic. So I'm glad that people are getting upset. It's just amazing how, you know, when power gets to your head and you're a governor, that all of a sudden now you're king or queen. You know, you're no longer a governor, which is supposed to, you know, kind of mean the opposite thing.
And so, of course, because you believe in liberty and civil rights and all of these things, the media isn't giving you a whole lot of attention. They tend to do that with the libertarian candidates. And, you know, they're keeping you out of the debates. And even at one point, I read that the Cleveland police showed up to stop your debate event last week.
Technically, it was the mayor's office.
Oh, even better.
Because we had gotten permission from the police. They were like, okay, sure, fine. And then the mayor's office stepped in and was like, no. And what was funny is first they said, you can't use that sound system. We said, okay, fine, we'll use a different one. And then I forgot what was next on the chopping block. We said, okay, fine, we'll do that. And then they said, oh, and the chairs have to go. You can't sit. Okay, we're going somewhere else.
So given all of that, what keeps you energized in this campaign where other people might be really discouraged with all of this?
Well, first of all, the fact that somebody has to do it. As I mentioned, I am the grandchild of immigrants, and my grandmother used to explain to me how great our country was and how in the other country, you know, that you didn't have the freedoms we have here, but also just the people that I go to see. I mean, the people in Cleveland were just amazing, and they were rather offended that I wouldn't be able to speak. So everybody's just been great on the campaign trail.
That's great. And I especially liked sort of related in the beginning, the hashtag I'm with her. Yes. That you co-opted.
We didn't come up with that. Somebody else came up with that.
That was really good. Really good.
Because Hillary was like such a, well, actually, no, she's with us. Yeah, she's with us, right? Yeah, play on that. Play on I'm with her. Because, Hillary, of course, it had to be about her.
Of course. So this one is, I guess, a little bit more on the personal side, and I'm just personally curious. So I know that you are in the psychology field, and as we discussed before the call, I'm in the mental health field as well, and it tends to be really left-leaning, at least where I'm from. So I'm just curious if you got any sort of blowback or resistance from colleagues or coworkers or students when you announced that you were running as a libertarian.
No. Well, first of all, I don't tell my students about it. Now, many of them find out anyway. But I'm rather surprised. Everybody's been very supportive. And I mean, I'm not surprised that they've been supportive. I was a little worried that maybe, because I had to get both the department chair's permission as well as the university president's permission. And I thought for sure they would say, well, we don't want it to reflect poorly on the university. And what if you say something wrong? What if the parents get mad? You know, you go out and say you should legalize drugs. You don't think we're going to get complaints from parents? I really thought that they would be like, not so fast. But no, the president of the university said, I think it's important that people run for office. So good job. So it was great.
That's awesome.
And now, I don't know how many people in my department are supporting me politically, but they're all, they're great people. I can't imagine a better job. I can't imagine better coworkers, and it's just been awesome. But the bigger problem is just the field of psychology in general. I teach social psychology, and there was some poll, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but something like out of a group of people, something like 600 said they're all liberal and like 12 said they were conservative, something like that. Because they were pointing out, okay, social psychology, we deal with discrimination and prejudice and stereotype. And perhaps we're doing that in our own field without realizing it. And like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that, because they all just, kind kind of go along as a pack.
I like to tell a story, and I've told it on my channel a few times, of when I worked at an agency. It was during the Obamacare era, and there was this whole thing where Obamacare was pushing providers to violate HIPAA in order to report on gun ownership. And I remember I raised my hand and answered some question in a staff meeting, and they're like, "How do you know?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a gun owner." And then everyone gave me the widest berths in the hallways after that. And I was like,
right. It's like,
well, I guess I can't talk about that.
I know. Wow. Well, I'm a gun owner too, by the way.
Well, and I understand that you're a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment.
You couldn't be stauncher than I am, I don't think. So in fact, gun owners of Maine, I think it was, that I got an A rating. And,
wow.
I think Trump got a B and everybody else kind of failed, if I remember correctly. I
usually do.
But yeah, I would personally get rid of every gun law that's been passed in the last 100 years and prevent the red flag laws from being passed. And, remember, not that you remember it happening, but from the history books, when George Wallace stood on the steps of University of Alabama not letting Black students in, and the federal government stepped in and said, no, they've got constitutional rights. Well, I would go to states like, for instance, if Virginia had passed that law, I would have gone to states like that and treated them as George Wallace and said, no. This is a constitutional right. They have the right to own guns. So I would treat it very seriously.
Good. I think that in itself would win a lot of votes. Now, so I know that I was told I really only got you for 15 minutes. So I have one last question that I'm going to ask so I don't monopolize you too much. And I feel like this is a personal favorite question among a lot of libertarians. And that is, how did you become a libertarian?
Well, I read Animal Farm in grade school.
In grade school? Wow.
Well, it was assigned. That's, before the Department of Education came along and destroyed education, that's what we did. We were at Animal Farm in grade school. And, then I looked around at politics and went, now I get why that book was written. And when I was finishing up my last year of college, for my first chunk of education, I heard a libertarian on the radio. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who believed in that. So I immediately went to the next, Libertarian Party meeting they had. And I've been in the movement now for 40 years.
Wow. Very awesome. Very awesome. Well, like I said, I don't want to monopolize too much of your time. I've already gone over my limit. Your guy was 10 minutes.
Well, I had fun, so that's great. And
me too. I don't want to make security come knocking on your door too. So
okay, well, have a great day.
Thank you, and thank you so much for coming on and having a chat.
Oh, well, at least let me say, go to jo20.com. That's jo20.com. And let me just quickly mention that about 75% of our volunteers are from outside the party. So it just shows how many people out there are looking for something different. And after the first debate, my website slowed to a halt because there was such increased traffic, people going, oh my gosh, is there anybody else out there? So I'd love for your viewers to go out and look me up.
Absolutely. I will make sure that they have that link.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. Great being here.
Thank you.
See ya.